I'm gonna have to delete that. So how we doing, folks? I'm all by myself once again. Nobody's here when the stream starts, but that's okay. I am Daddy Warcrimes. We're gonna do some hand tool woodwork, and unfortunately I gotta delete a video real quick because I showed something that I was not supposed to show. And we're just gonna pretend that nobody saw it, and that'll be fine. So videos. You can't really do this in the Twitch app for some reason. And we'll just go there and delete. Yep. Alright, so welcome back to the workshop. Last few streams we were doing our spice rack for the 2x4 challenge. And what is this warning I'm getting? Let's go. Poor connection. Are we? Yeah. Well, we're just going to have a poor connection then, I guess. It's not a dang thing I can do about it. But here's the 2x4 challenge. This is the spice rack I made. I made this out of a single 8-foot 2x4 and boiled linseed oil. That's it. The joinery is all traditional. I've got drawbore tenons, and these, I did a really poor job. If you can see this one right here, thoroughly messed that up. Other ones came out a bit nicer. And as far as the drawbore tenons, if you can see right here, this is my first attempt. I didn't get it. The drawbore tenon, if you're not familiar with it, we bore a hole through the receiving end, the mortise, and we have offset holes with the tenons. So when you drive the peg through, it actually has to pull it even tighter together in order to mesh properly. And unfortunately, I was a bit too aggressive with the first one, and we blew out the back, and the second one didn't even go through the other end. But that's okay. I think we proved the concept anyway. And I'm just going to put on another coat of Danish oil here, and then I'm going to call it good. And let's see. I've got a ton of old t-shirts. I'm just finally making use of them. Let's go. So this one is from an Aikido club that I used to belong to. That was many, many, many moons ago. I haven't been doing Aikido for, well, probably since I left that one. It's good times. I highly recommend it. If Aikido is the right art for you. Now, you always hear a lot of people bashing this martial art and that martial art in one style or another style. They say a particular style isn't actually good for combat, it isn't actually good for fighting. My assessment is that there are styles which are appropriate for the individual martial artist. For me, Aikido was an appropriate style for me. I think I might also be interested in like Tai Chi, something like that. But yeah, most of the stuff that I don't think I could do karate. I don't think I could do kung fu. Or at least not most of the branches of kung fu. I honestly don't know enough about them to make that. I guess make a blanket statement. have looked for an Aikido dojo since I moved out here. Haven't had a whole lot of luck finding one yet. There is a dojo of sorts that seems to be somewhat derivative of Aikido, or at least related to. I'm going to mispronounce this. It's like Yosekan Budo or something like that. It starts with a Y. Does not seem to be very popular in the United States. More of a French thing, I guess. But I'm more likely to be looking at a local Tai Chi place, which also does a variety of Kung Fu. But the Tai Chi is what appeals to me more. But we'll see. That's probably somewhere later along down the line, because I do not have the time and or money for it right now. So. And this is about my third coat of Danish oil on this piece, and I think I'm going to call it good after that. And this is just the Watco stuff. You can find it anywhere. Linseed oil, this Danish oil. On occasion I've been known to do a polyurethane, but that's about as adventurous as I get right now. I'd like to try shellac at some point. I don't know when I'm going to do that. Yeah, the next meetup is for the Tool Club is next week, or the Woodworking Club is next week. So I just wanted to have this ready by then. So I did a lot of it off stream, unfortunately. All the actual joinery, fitting everything, and well, not fitting everything, but actually assembling it and driving the pegs. But again, it's fairly simple, just a drawbore, mortise and tenon for the tops and the sides here, and the actual peg hooks, those are wedge tenons. Now for these pegs, I made them with my doweling plate, and also the dowels for the drawbore tenons. So everything went through the doweling plate, and first time using that as well, and learning the unfortunate lesson that you want to have really straight grain when you're going through those, because these pegs here, boy are they rough. All right, and I'm going to set this aside. Now you always want to be careful when you're working with these oils, oiled linseed oil and such, because the rags can spontaneously combust. Hence, I've got a 40mm ammo can that I keep just for this purpose. This can is pretty well sealed, so oxygen's not really going to get in there very well. So if a fire does start, one, it's going to be contained in the metal, and two, it's not going to last very long because it's going to consume all the oxygen in there and then probably just burn out. All right. Now let's get to this spice rack, which is the subject of what this stream is supposed to be about. Mrs. Warcrimes is fancies herself to be a bit of a cook, which means we have a kitchen that is just chock full of different types and blends of spices. It's got almost 100 bottles of the stuff. Various shapes and sizes. Well, fortunately, they're all the same size now, so that is not going to be an issue for building this rack, because we can make everything on the dimensions. So we're going to make this thing about 42 inches tall by about 24 inches wide, and it's going to have approximately 7 shelves going through it, and we're going to have the shelves are going to have a wire retaining, or a retaining wire in front of them so that we can lift out. So this is a little bit of an adventure for me, some stuff I haven't done. We're going to be doing dados on the shelves to hold those in place, and the wire epoxy, or the wire retaining bracket is going to be epoxied in to the sides of it. So we're going to be doing some wire bending. We're going to be doing some epoxy, which epoxy is also an adventure for me. I haven't done that before. So yeah, good times all around. And I made a bit of a sketch here, which I am not eager to share because my drawing is even worse than my woodworking. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're doing 6 shelves? Okay, 6 shelves on the top and bottom. And it's going to be 42 inches. We're going to be doing about 2 inches deep, and there's going to be a backing on it. So, you know what? I'm going to step inside for just a minute and grab one of these bottles for a reference. This bottle is for paprika, but there is no paprika, so I think it's okay to use as a reference point. So, we are going to have, let me find a ruler here. All right. So we need to have, I'd say, about 2 inches for the bottle itself. And you know what? I'm going to make it 2 1/4, I think. And then we're going to need another 1/2 inch. So it's 2 3/4. So 1/2 inch, because we're going to be doing a backing that's going to be recessed into the back of it, so a what do you call it? A rabbet going around the edge of it. So yeah, 2 3/4. That's about what I'm going to need. So I think the first thing we're going to do is start cross-cutting these to approximate length. So the tops are going to be 24 inches. The shelves, I'm just going to go ahead and rip the or cut the shelves to 24 inches right now. And if need be, let's start with you. Actually, I made a trip to a local sawmill has a decent selection. Nothing really exotic. I think probably the most exotic thing they had would have been like walnut or sassafras. At least I think that's what they called it. But really great prices. Beats Home Depot with a 10-foot pole. I know I've got a tape measure. All right. All right, for the top and bottom, I'm going to start with about 24 1/4. This should leave me, you know what, let's, yeah, we're pretty square there. This should hopefully leave me enough room in case I need to do some squaring at the ends. Go. Okay, apparently that's not good enough. Let's get it higher. I know I got another one of these somewhere. These were practice dovetails I was doing when it's like my first and second attempt at dovetails. Why are you so non-cooperative here? Come on, work with me. Work with me. But they do come in quite handy for other purposes. How about you? Yeah, that'll work. Maybe I ought to get some kind of wedge system going for that. All right. Been working so much with pine that I forget what hardens are actually like. A little bit more difficult cutting through this poplar. So once I get these to rough length, I'll get them properly planed down and dimensioned and squared. But I want to have them closer to the final size because, you know, let's do this. That'll be less wasted material. And the reason we're using poplar is because we're going to put some pretty dark stain on it. And poplar is cheap. Otherwise I would have gone with walnut. ain't got money for walnut. That would have been, what, about twice as much? I think walnut's about $6 a board foot, whereas this is $3. That my sawmill actually has limited quantity, so they have purchase limits on the walnut. All right, what do we got left? All right, so this piece is got a bit of a defect in it, but okay, so can we get how much? Got 48 inches here. Oh, we got 49 inches actually. So I think I'm going to take this one and have this as a side. And honestly, I'm just going to keep it that length for now. I'm not going to bother. How straight are we? Got a bit of a bow. I'm going to come back to this one. It's got the right length for the side piece, but it's bowed enough that I would be losing a decent amount of material planing that down, so that'd be a lot of work to plane. So I could get a side, or I could get 2 shelves out of it. And how are we looking? This one's a bit straighter overall, I think. Nah, we still got a bow there. Right, can we get 48 inches out of you? Or 42 inches? Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So we're looking for 42 inches, and that's going to make up our sides. Looks like we got a... No, that's not a knot, that's just a ding. Someone bit into that one. Oh, you just are not liking me today. We'll see about the other side. That's straight enough. And a bit of a bow. Well, I guess the theme of this is still rustic, so able to get. Let's go pencil. Put you there for a reason. .42 inches. situated, the way it's going to be hanging in the kitchen, one of the sides is going to be up against a wall, and another one is going to be quite visible to the well, pretty much to everybody. So we are going to want, if we can, to put the nicer piece facing towards the room. And so that's going to be the left side, whereas the right side, that's going to be up against a wall. Hardly anybody's going to see that part of it anyway. And what do we have here? Yeah, I'm not eager to be doing that. So, let's see what we can get out of this last piece. And you are probably the straightest example we have. It definitely needs to be jointed, but not a lot of. I think this board's wider at one side than it is the other. Got 3 3/8. 3 5/8. 3 3/4. This board is all kinds of messed up. It doesn't know what width it wants to be. All right, we'll go with it. Nothing I'm doing needs to be wider than 3 inches, so I'm totally okay with this. I'm just going to have to account for it, and this is the straight face, so. And there's my second vertical. Oh. Those are almost dead even. All right. Now we need some shelves. And let's see. How deep do I want to make my dados? So my stock is about 15/16. It's probably going to be 3/4 by the time I'm done planing it. I think I might be able to get away with 3/8. Does that sound good to you guys? Yeah, 3/8. Well, that'll put me halfway through the thickness. So 3/8 plus 3/8 is going to be 6/8 or 3/4. 24 minus 3/4 is going to be 23 1/4. So we'll go for about 23 1/2 for the shelves. And that'll give me ample wiggle room, okay, for when I need to trim them down. 23 1/2. I guess Tuesday mornings are fairly slow mornings for woodworking channels. Or at least for me, because I've got nobody watching still. Here all by myself, no chat. Ain't even got a shop dog. I should have a shop dog. Yo! This makes absolutely no sense. Someone is telling me yo, except it's not coming up in this stream chat, and I've still got no viewers showing. So, I have no idea what that yo is about. But yo yourself. Ah, BB Frogger. Good to see you, man. How have you been? Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Or joining me, since I'm all by myself. I'm doing okay. I'm making things out of wood. It's always a good day when you're making things out of wood. So if you can imagine, I've got my cell phone up here with Streamlabs running on it, and it's giving me messages that I can barely read. So I've also got my Twitch app over here on my tablet, except nothing's popping up on it. So we're having all kinds of technical funs here. That and I'm using up half the Wi-Fi because, and that's pissing off the rest of the family, if you can imagine. So I don't think you caught the last streams we were doing. We were doing a 2x4 challenge. The goal of which is to make something, anything really, out of a single 2x4. The challenge being that the 2x4 is terrible wood and you can't really make anything good out of it. Yeah, well, I think there's just definite lag on Twitch. It's odd that Streamlabs is faster than, which is like a third-party extension, is faster than the actual Twitch app. So yeah, this is the coat rack I made. You probably saw some of my Instagram pictures. Actually, I think you liked one of them the other day. But good times. For the spice rack, I get to use poplar, so it's going to look a little bit better. There is 2 shelves. Is there a way I can auto refresh this, or? Well, I appreciate the thoughts anyway. I've gotten to the point in my woodworking where I know enough to know that I'm not all that good. Yeah, I really don't know. It seems like I have to manually refresh this in order for it to work. And apparently I just tried to join a room and now I can't see anything. There we go. Let's go with that. If you can't tell, my shop is not yet organized as much as I'd like it to be. So things are falling down and I'm misplacing everything, and all really fun times. Well, yeah, that's the trouble when you start learning things. Is you start off and you think you're doing a great job, and then you actually learn what you're doing, and then you realize you suck. There's a time when Aikido class, many moons ago, I had there's a movement in Aikido where you pivot around your front foot. And that's called a tenkan. So if right foot forward, I'm pivoting on my right foot, going like that. So after a class, we were in another fellow student the concept of natural lay of the gun, which is a shooting concept, which I'm much more familiar with shooting things than I was with Aikido. And so natural lay of the gun is basically that you orient your body towards the target and not actually move the weapon to the target, you move your entire body. And so as I was explaining this, so not going like this where you're moving your arms, but moving your actual whole body to orient yourself to the target. And as I was doing this, Sensei happened to see this and he's like, "Steve, you just did a perfect tenkan right there. Why can't you do that on the mat?" So yeah, that's I think that's the way of skills, is you don't know what you don't know. And it's a good thing these are rough cuts, because they are rough. Alright, if I got another shelf in here, yes I do. Who just hey man me? Pepe Silva, welcome back, and thanks for the sub, man. Unfortunately, I had to do a lot of the finishing stuff for the coat rack off stream, but this is the finished project, and we totally messed up the back, and we blew out one of these wedge tenons and one of the drawbores. But proof of concept, I can build without glue. And so we've moved on to a, what we're calling this, a spice rack. Because the missus wants a spice rack, and she's got tons upon tons of spices. See this bottle right here? I've got about 88 of these bottles that I have to fit on a spice rack. Good times, right? Good times. Well, that's looking good. Spice rack probably isn't, because it's all pieces right now. So this may just be a boring day of cross-cutting and planing. I'm not really sure yet. Okay, that's 4 shelves, and I need 2 more, which I think I can get. This piece I put aside because it's got a huge ding on it from something. I'm going to have to hide that somehow, because I do not have enough lumber to replace it. I could stick it on the bottom of the piece, or on the top facing up, and use that as just one of my framing pieces rather than as, wait, hold on a second. No, that's, boy. It's like just at the edge where I can't really avoid using it. So I'm either gonna have to stick it, try and hide it in one of the shelves somewhere, or use one of these 24-inch pieces for the top or bottom, and use that as a shelf and get the top or bottom from here, and that way I can hide it. I'm just going to make a shelf out of it. I'm already committed to those. This face is flatter. What am I using that for? That's how we do it. This poplar is not being all that cooperative with the cross-cutting. Maybe I just need to sharpen my saw again, but I hope not, because crosscut saws have turned out to be a real pain in the ass to sharpen. Rip saws I can do, crosscut saws not so much. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I got 6 shelves, the top and the bottom, 2 sides, and 2 nice little pieces of scrap. Play with those later. All right. Let us get to I'm really getting sick of storing all my tools here in this tray. When I put that tray there, the intent was to have it as basically a temporary thing. So storing the tools that I am using right away. What I'm planning on doing someday is a French cleat system back here on the wall. And get me a plane till and some saw tills and a rack to hold my chisels. All that groovy stuff. I bought some oak for it. But just haven't got to it yet. Just not quite yet. Alright, what do I want to start with? Shelves or... You know what, I'm going to do the sides. These are most likely to have the most material cut off of them. So that should give me a good thickness for everything else. I think the number 6 is a good place to start. Well, let's check for wide. Okay. Fairly flat to start with. But we do want to get these saw marks off, these machine marks. But this corner seems to be the high spot. And a lot of undulations from the planer. Should probably look at the grain direction here. Yeah, I think I want to play going this way. understand. But yes, you really need to get to know your wood. You can get away with a lot with power tools, because power tools just don't care. But when you're using hand tools, if you're not reading the grain direction properly, you can have a really bad day. Got a low spot right here I'm trying to get out still. Lane's just skipping over it right now. Check the wind again to make sure I'm going in the right direction. Making it worse, maybe. This corner's still pretty high. Attempt to get the number 7 out for some reason. Probably just because I want to show off my collection. And I've got a bow in the middle, it looks like. Maybe the big gun can get it flattened a bit, or get it a bit flatter. This is the only record plane I have. Most of mine are Stanleys. A not properly labeled plane. I have no idea when this was last sharpened, but I haven't used it in several months. And this is a newish blade anyway, so probably not a bad idea to to start from the rough grade, or the rough grit. There we go. When I finally, when I get that, the French cleat system on the back wall, I'm also looking at maybe doing a lower bench, just a small, maybe 18-inch deep bench, and put my sharpening stuff on that, and have it slightly lower than this because bit better, maybe just a couple inches more ergonomic for sharpening. The only problem with that, of course, is doing live streams. I'm going to be showing everybody my ass all the time. And while that might be popular nowadays, I just don't think I can get away with it. You know, unless I was like writing your name on the whiteboard or something. Well, it is a very common phenomenon, so. So in the wood shop, half your time is spent sharpening. Another half of your time is spent trying to figure out which tool you want to use. Half the time is spent trying to figure out how to correct the mistakes you made. I think in the end you wind up with about 5 halves. But that's okay. It's still a lot of fun. It's kind of like that scene from The Producers, right? Where they end up selling 5,000% of their play. That would just be vanity. That and I'd run out of arm here. So this number 7 is the biggest plane I own, but it's not the biggest plane in existence. That honor falls to the number 8. I think the number 8 is just a bit wider. It's not actually longer. Oh, I know I've got a blade here somewhere. There we go. And get a little lateral adjustment. Just put some oil on it. There we go. Get a bit more aggressive, I think. That's what I like to see. Nice, thin shades. And really, it's just over here, it seems to be. It's my high spot. That's pretty good. Doesn't look like I've got any twist really. Maybe just a little. Still there in the middle, I think. We're getting close though. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that is probably not flat, but flat enough. Alright, so where do I want my second face to be? I'll go with that one. Let's just take a couple of passes and see where we're standing. I did not get a continuous shaving. Let's do a continuous shaving. So with the planer, with a plane, the sole is flat. So if there are any high or low spots, it'll cut the high spots and skip over the low spots. And so when you have parts of the board that are not getting cut, you know it's not flat. And when you get a continuous shaving all along, you're pretty close to flat. There we go. Now light in there. Yep, not quite. That should be enough. So, do I want to rip this next, or do I want to plane the other faces? I think I'm going to rip it next. That'll leave me less planing to do. All right. So what I need is a marking gauge. And that's the side. So what did I decide that was going to be? Actually, I don't think I did. So the trick to this is we want to have enough room that's going to actually properly hold the shelves up, but we want the shelves to actually protrude out from the sides. So we can have it a bit smaller. You know what, I am just going to go ahead and wait. This is the tricky thing is when you're trying to make it up on the fly is you don't actually have a really good plan half the time. Let's think this out. So I need about a ½ inch for the backer. And I think we decided, how long did we want the shelves, how wide did we want the shelves to be? Like 2 3/4. Well, yeah, 2 inches is going to be plenty for the shelf to hold these, so we just need that ½ inch behind that. And you know what, the shelves can protrude about a ½ inch, I think, from the sides. I think that'll look pretty good. So, doing those 2 3/4. So 1 1/4 inches. Is that enough? Is that what I want to do? You know what, I think I'm just going to come back to this. And we're just going to get everything planed for now. And so this is the dimensioning stream. Good times. No exciting joinery here, just dimensioning. All right. Face, that's a smooth. See if we got any wind. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that may be the case. I'm trying to keep it interesting by talking, but, you know, there's only so much one man has to say. I think what some people appreciate about streaming is that you can't hide your flaws. And it lets people know that even the folks they can look up to aren't on their game all the time. I don't know if you can hear that, but the plane I can hear it skipping over the low spots. And if we can, this may not show up very well on the camera, but you might be able to see the high and low spots. That's probably not showing up well at all. So the audio is pretty good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm using this. I got this kit for my phone, and it had a tripod mount that you just clamp your phone into, and an external camera or an external microphone that just plugs in and points. So it's like a shotgun mic sort of thing. Fairly cheap, but hey, if it's working, right? I'm thinking about eventually getting like a wireless lav mic. But that's probably going to require that I make some money off the streaming first. Which may or may not ever happen. When I was doing woodworking videos on YouTube, or at least the last few I was doing, I still might do it in the future. But I found trying to talk while I was woodworking was a bit difficult and didn't come out quite as well as I would have liked it to. So I ended up doing the voiceover, like on my, oh shit, it was almost a year ago I did the mallet video. That's where I was using, what's that? Yeah. I would like at some point to get this a little bit more insulated, but I'm also at some point planning on building a shop in the backyard. Yeah, that mallet video is where I was using your song. Can't even remember what song it was. Because, I think? Was that the name of it? may not be worthwhile to get them all out. We're still high in this corner. So how long have you been doing that, playing Final Fantasy? What is it, 14, 15, something like that? The online? I was briefly looking into trying that out. But I'm not sure I want to even tempt fate with another MMO. I gave up WoW a couple years ago. It just lost its entertainment value to me. I think more or less what killed it for me was the expansion, Cataclysm was the last one I did. But that changed a lot of mechanics of all the classes. Each class was completely different than it was before, or at least played. And I just got sick of relearning and everything because I had like a ton of bolts. How are we looking? I came back to WoW a few months ago just to see what it was like. I played for about a month and haven't been back since. So yeah, I think it's pretty settled that I'm not playing WoW anymore. I recently got a new computer, so it's the first time I've been using Windows in a long time. Is the monk, is that like a martial artist sort of thing? You know, I don't actually need that part because we're only going to be, what, 2 inches? Maybe 3? Yeah. So we will be good to go there. And we're just going this way. Make a few passes. The monks in WoW were introduced like 2 expansions ago, 2, 3, something like that. They're a hybrid class, so they can do tank DPS, melee DPS, or healing. I tried them out, didn't like them. On WoW anyway. Is Final Fantasy anything like WoW where DPS is overrepresented and you can never find a good tank? So you can switch classes at any time? That's kind of fun. I think my okay. WoW a few years ago, well, I guess several years ago now, made it so you could switch specifications. So each class had different specs you could use. So, say the warrior had a protection spec, which was your tank, or he had a fury or an arms spec, which were both DPS specs, just different aspects of them. But you could only have one at a time, and originally you would have to go back to the big city, visit one of the trainers to change your spec. But a few expansions ago they changed it to so you could have two specs and you could switch it with a skill. So it makes you a little bit more versatile, but still not quite. I'm not exactly sure how they do it now. They changed it up again. So now I think you can just switch between specs as you want. And you're too big for the number 7. Let's try number 5. And on that subject, I've got a dual spec plane here. So if we can see, this blade is very round, it's got about a 10-inch radius, whereas this one is flat. I use the rounded angle iron to take off a lot of material at once, where the flat one is going to give me much smoother cuts. And this on the strap, see how that goes. My favorite thing used to be playing healing. I had a druid, and there are feral druids, which are your melee and your tanks. There's the balance is what they called it, where you turn into a giant chicken that shoots laser beams, and the restoration, which you turn into a tree. So I had a restoration druid, except I never turned into a tree. I stayed in my human form, or I guess it was an elf form, night elf. And that way I could not only do heals, but also do damage when I wasn't healing, because you could get to a point where healing everything was just so damn easy that you had plenty of other time, so it got kind of boring. People used to yell at me for being so low in DPS. It's like I'm the healer, not supposed to do DPS. There we go. I'm going to need that. Another one of my favorite games, Finds the Screw. Well, the thing I found most beneficial with playing tank or heals is that if you ever had a shitty group, it only took like a minute to find a new one. Whereas when you had a bad group with as a DPS, if you left, you were waiting another 15, 20, 30 minutes just to find another group. Tanks and healers didn't have that problem. Where's the grain going? It's going that way. So, try and find the blade just slightly protruding from the sole and square it up so that it's parallel to the sole. One of the things WoW does is, as they release expansions, or at least so they'll do new character classes, like with Wrath of the Lich King, they released the Death Knights. The Death Knights could be tanks. With Mist of Pandaria, they released the Monk. The Monks could be tanks. And with Legion, they released the Demon Hunter, and the Demon Hunters can be tanks. So they've never released a new class without it being able to tank. And also every class can DPS too, because everybody wants to DPS, and it's a real pain in the ass to level as a healer or a tank. Healer more so than a tank. is winding sticks. I made out of scraps I had in my shop, just a couple pieces of maple, and actually this one has, you can see for the contrast, it's got a piece of Australian myrtle on top. And if there's any twist in the board, those will exaggerate it and make it easier to see, so you know where you can know where your high spots are, know where to plane. So you've got guild purse listed as a description of where you're playing. Is that your guild or is that your server or something? I see. Is that a mandatory feature of the game, or is that optional? All right. Getting a bit of a ridge. That should be okay. Let's check, and we'll move on to the face, or on the side. Yo. Obey Mixo! How you doing? Welcome to the stream. We're making things out of wood. I'm talking about Final Fantasy, which I know absolutely nothing about, but BB Frogger is our resident expert. Sort of boring aspect of it, we're getting everything flat and square. So no joinery just yet. But the ultimate goal is to make a spice rack. A big spice rack. For many, many, many exotic spices and some not so exotic spices. Like paprika, which we have apparently run out of. Now there's a few in the woodworking community. About 30 channels that I've seen so far. But yeah, not a really big thing, but you know, Twitch was designed for gaming, so that's where it started. And still a little bit twisted. So you heard the skipping before, and so we can take a straight across shaving, and it's not skipping, but if I go at an angle, so I'm going corner to corner. We've got high spots on the corners that I'm trying to take down. You can't do this with machine tools, or at least you can't tell by the sound with machine tools because the machine tools are too damn noisy. And they also have a greater tendency to cut off your fingers. How we looking? Oh boy. You know, sometimes I think I'm just making it worse. We'll get there eventually, though. Of course, the advantage of the machine tools you don't get any skills that way. You know, you do this work with the hand tools, and you start to think, is this even worthwhile? And then you go and fit a dovetail joint. And it's an amazing feeling. Almost there. So, Bay Mixo, tell me the story behind that name. Who is Mixo, and why should we obey him or her? I see. Apologize, I'm not familiar with obey. Okay. My wife does a bit of that sometimes. Not professionally, but she was trained in the art. And does quite a bit of it as side things. Which way do I want to go? That side's already flattish, so we put F for face. That way we know which one's flat. And let's make a couple passes to see where we stand. The goal here is to make this face flat and perpendicular to the face, to the main face. That way we always have something good to measure off. That should be flat enough. Let's check for square. Okay, we're square pretty much all along there, except not there. Well, I think actually we're coming up close on the 2-hour mark. And that's usually about how long I make these streams. Now, so far, managed to get ourselves 10 boards. And we've planed 2 faces of 3 of those boards. And we talked about Final Fantasy and MMOs. If I was in a real wood shop, I would have been fired by now. And there we go. Transfer the face mark over to this side. That way we know this side is true. Fortunately, I do not make my living as a woodworker. I've got a pension. I get paid the same whether I produce something or not. Okay. Where's the grain at? Where's the grain? Okay, uphill. We got some deep machine marks on this one. I have a remedy though. So Mixo, if I am pronouncing that correctly, Central Time. And if you look at my channel, there should be a widget that shows when the next stream is coming up. If you want to give me a follow, that'd be great. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. All my archives get uploaded to YouTube. Well, this will be archive number 4. I haven't been doing Twitch a whole long time, but I've got some stuff, some woodworking videos on there from earlier you might want to check out. Almost entirely hand tool stuff, because hand tools are where it's at. Yeah, someday maybe I'll get 50 followers and get affiliated and make money doing this and buy more tools. Got a pension, so I don't need to get money to eat, so any money I get from this channel gets to go back into the channel. And I fully expect to get absolutely $0 from this. But you know, other people get money from it, so why not me? So Mixo, you do any streaming? You do any graphic design streaming by chance? Seen a good amount of stuff on the creative side. Wood burning, wood turning, of course. A lot of drawing. Even seen programming. Time to sharpen, I think. One of the sharpening tricks is you want to sharpen more often and just keep it on the strop. That way you don't have to spend as much time on the stones or the diamond plates. But then you just have to try and catch it before it gets dull. Which is a little tricky because by the time you notice it's dull, it's already too late. And we're probably cutting it a little bit too close there. Probably should have taken it to the fine stones at least, but that's probably work that I didn't want to do. These straps are actually quite easy to use. Glued some, I think that's deer leather, to the face of it. Got the leather just from a hobby shop. My YouTube mentor, Paul Sellers, showed me how to do that, and he gets his leather from couches that he finds on the side of the road. Well, thanks for stopping by, BB Frogger. It's good to see you again. I'm probably not going to be streaming later today. So, if you want to check back on Thursday, I'll be there. I used to be more about doing edited videos for YouTube and whatnot, gaming videos, just political commentary or whatever. But to be quite honest, that's a ton of work. Recording videos, not hard. Editing videos, that's a pain. Oh, sweet. Well, try and check out your streams more often then. Well, you know what? I think that's probably going to be enough for me then too. I'll try and get a lot of this planed off stream. Maybe I mentioned a little bit better that way. Thursday when we come back, I'll have more interesting things to do like joinery. But yeah, thanks for stopping by everybody. And yeah, give me a follow if you can. And look for me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, wherever, YouTube.